I'm reading from the Christian Standard Bible version. Um, I'm gonna read the section where it talks about believers are the salt and the light. Um, and once I finish with that, Anthony, I actually want to know your thoughts on how this section is prevalent to you. Um, and again, I'm reading from the Christian Standard Bible. It says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt should lose its taste, how can it be made salty? It's no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city situated on a hill cannot be hidden. No one light oh crap. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, but rather on a lampstand, and it gives light for all who are in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." So within that section, I feel like we like let's stay on the part where we're talking about how we're the salt and the light, right?
Mhm.
Um, Anthony, what on when it talks about how we're called to be the salt and the light, like how do you what do you take from that?
The first thing I thought of was first of all, we're role models. And it's almost like an ambassador. When I was growing up, and I really liked the brand um, Pola. I remember one of my favorite, this guy was a model. Can't think of his name right now, but he was the ambassador for that company. He represented that company, and how his actions, the things that he did, um, gave the brand a light, made people like that brand. Tyson Beckford, he whatever he did, he was trying to attract people to that brand by making appearances, signing autographs. But when I think about this, I think about like we're God's people, we're His ambassadors, so to speak, and it's up to us to be an encouragement to the people that we're around, um, because we have that you know food without salt is bland. We have that flavor that we have in us spiritually, and it's our job to talk to people like, hey, look, this is what Christ is all about. And I think just we just have to be an encouragement. I have in my section right here. I want to read this because it's similar to what I'm saying as far as um, what we're talking about. It says, if we have been delivered from God, if we have been delivered by God's power, we are witnesses to His power to save. We carry the light of His gospel to people imprisoned in darkness of sin. Sinful behaviors and warped relationships abound, and people are desperate for the truth and light. We can make a significant, I'm just going to say that word again, significant impact on individuals, relationships, and even societal structures if we are willing to shine. Again, I will emphasize that word shine, our spiritual light to others, to see. As we experience God's deliverance, we are privileged. And that's one thing that this is not a chore. We're being God's people. We're privileged. This is a privilege for us to bring others to Christ. We're privileged to share the good news of God's love with others, extending hope to people that are hurting. So we have this privilege. We have this persona of light, not darkness. And we're bringing people in and letting them know, this is who God is by the way we live, by the way we talk, by the way we um, interact. So again, when I look at salt and light, like that's essentially, what we are. We're ambassadors for Christ.
Mhm. I like that. I like what you said. I like what you said right there because for those that don't know, I use a study Bible for the audience, and it has little like study notes, and what it has is it correlates to what Brother Anthony was talking about, especially for salt and the light. Um, it says as the salt of the earth. Okay, so salt has many uses, but in the Old Testament, it's often a purifying agent. Now, us as the salt of the earth, we are to purify a corrupt world through their example of righteous living and the proclamation of the gospel. Um, and then when it brings up the verb lose its taste, it indicates foolish and immoral behavior. It refers to a professing disciple whose unrighteous lifestyle promotes destruction rather than purification. Um, so what I read in the notes right here uh, backs up what you're saying, Anthony, because like you said, like we're called to be the light, right, in a dark world that's corrupt, right? We're taught to we're taught to give life to people, right? To plant the seed, right, so that the Lord can grow into these people's hearts, right? For us to be, and this is what our pastor talks about, right? Like when we're walking it out, you know, the Bible tells that we're called to be a living word, right? Because you can know scripture from front end to back end, but if you're not living in the word, like it's for vanity, meaning like it's all emptiness, right? Like you could speak, and I've said this before, where you could speak like you could speak tongues, and that's all cool and all, but if you're not speaking out of love, like you're just making noise. That you know because that right there, you're just promoting destruction, which goes back to what brothers David and Mike were saying about how like so many people do that where it's prevalent, right? And where it's like they treat that as like they're being honest, right? Like, oh, like you would rather me be honest than to lie to you, but it's like you're abusing the honesty, the integrity, and you're speaking death onto people instead of speaking life to people and bringing and the bigger purpose is you bring them to Christ, right? And I can't remember where in the Bible, and I'm paraphrasing so hard, so Lord forgive me. But in the Bible talks about something how um for us not to be the reason that we lead others to sin, that we lead others away from Christ, type of thing, right? Like and I think something like that happens because of the destruction that especially amongst believers, right? That's why they're called wolves in sheep clothing, right? Because there are believers that claim his name, but when you see them on their walk in their day-to-day walk, they're not the salt, they're not the light. They're just masquerading themselves into that. I feel like brother David should wants to add on to that, and I'm curious. I want to know something too.
Uh, so as I was listening to the reading and of course listening to y'all, like I'll break it down by each verse, try to make it quick as possible.
Mhm.
So like I've always known salt to be a preservative and a seasoning. And that comes from me watching people cook and then me learning how to cook myself. And you can't put too much because too much of something can always turn into something bad
Mhm.
and it can be flipped for what the purpose of it was. So, and then as I read this and it says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned?" And that kind of tells me like if we as followers of Christ lose our favor, which is going to be our faith, then you know how can we give that flavor out to the rest of the earth so we all can be seasoned in the gift that he's trying to give us, which is eternal life? So I kind of think of it like that if we're going to speak from like a cooking standpoint,
Right.
you know. But and I mean that's just true. If people were to all fake their faith, there would never be anything given back to us, and we wouldn't be able to spread the word, we wouldn't be able to build the kingdom, like everything would just crumble. And I think that's what that is saying when it says that.
Mhm.
And then when it came to 14, you are the light of the world, and city that is set on the hill cannot be hidden. I mean, and it conjoins with 15 too, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Like the same way you put that light on a lampstand, and if you have a light up city on the hill, it's going to shine through the darkness no matter
Mm.
what. It don't matter if you have a candlelight that you flickered on. Light is still going to be prevalent. You're going to be able to see it. If it's a massive amount of darkness, you will see a spark.
Mm.
And that's literally all you need is that spark. And that's all he's really asking for. Because if all of us just have that spark together, we will be a blooming sun.
Mm.
So that's kind of like what it gets to me. And then on the last part, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. I mean, heck, just commune in church. Like that's what it's made for. Uh, go out, be the kindest person that you can be, and work on you as you greet people and tell them like, and then be honest with it too. Like I'm working on it. I can take the compliments if you get them too, because if they see something that you don't see in yourself, that just tells you stuff is working. And then just be humble about it. Don't get arrogant about it. Just accept it for what it is, and that you just may be taking those first steps towards the Father. So, and like it says, may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. And if you continue to do those things, just simply being kind and speaking to people, because a lot of people get ignored, just say hi. Like it can be as simple as that. Give them the opportunity to be seen and heard. That's all it really takes too. So just that's the conception of what I've got as I listened to y'all and as I was reading this.
Man, there's so much you said. I should have been writing down, but I was taking it all in. I should
I
have written
know,
down because
like
I wanted to respond, but I was like, man, so much you had said. Even the idea of salt. What were you going to say, Larry?
no, I just like let me put on like my spiritual bulletproof vest first, real quick, because too many shots are being taken.
Oh yeah, put that
Come on.
armor on. Put that armor on, man.
Ah,
I am cooking over here,
Oh
bro.
yeah, David.
Oh
David's in his bag
my
today. He
God,
woke
bro.
up. He woke up this morning. He woke up this morning and was like,
Interrupting the video real quick to clear up the air. I was not bragging about what I was saying. I was clearly talking about my apartment being hot because they was working on the AC. My brothers made it look like I was bragging, but just letting you know that's not how I operate. All right, so back to the video.
you know what?
we got the Christian salt babe.
He's like, he said, you know what?
Man, I'm not
It's
even
been
talking
about
about
three
cooking
weeks.
like that, bro. I'm hot. I'm burnt. I already told y'all.
he he's over. It's the Holy Spirit is on him. It's on
Oh
him
man,
today. It's
man.
on him today. But no, I'll be brief. I know we got the last four. I'll be brief, but a few things that stood out to me. Just random side thought, random but not so random. The idea of salt is very interesting to me because it made me also think about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah when Lot's wife turned back and she turned into a pillar of salt. It made me think, why a pillar of salt? Why not just dust? Why not just leaves? That has symbolism in a way. Like why specifically salt? Because God is always intentional about what he does. But why salt? So just a food for thought. I know that's a totally different book of the Bible, a totally different story, but just a food for thought. Maybe we'll cover that in a later episode, but it just made me think about that.
Yeah, we'll get
But
to it.
but even still on the idea of Saw, it also made me think. I remember watching a movie recently, and there was like this evil spirit in the house, and the woman playing the aunt in the film, she was trying to purge the spirit out of the house, and what she did was set up like four different candles, and she poured salt around the table. And salt has always been throughout different religions. Salt has always been used as like and identified as like a purifying agent, and purity. It's always had that representation, and it's interesting in to see it translate over just even in Christianity because different religions see it as like this purifying agent using salt like it's a barrier. It's has a representation and symbolism of protection. It's purity is things that stick out. So that's also what I thought about too. And then another thing is, one thing my mom would always tell me was, just try to be consistent in your life because you never know who's watching. I remember my supervisor coming up to me probably a few months ago, and he's like, "Hey, do you remember such and such from you at work when you worked at Carney's, the job I had before now for working with the city?" He's like, he had said, "Hey," he stopped me. He said, "Hey, do you does Michael work for you? Michael Rogers?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, he works with us at the city." He's like, "Hey, that's a good dude, man. That's a good dude." And when he told me that, I was like, I have no idea who he's talking about. I don't even remember this person. I have no idea who he's talking about. But it just made me think about what my mom always said. Like, you never know who's watching. Like the impact that you're going to make on people's lives, something you say to them, you just never know
Mm.
who's watching. So try to treat I saw this the other day, from the janitor to the CEO, treat people the same. Like try to treat people the same and have a good spirit towards anybody. I don't care how high somebody is in a company, how low somebody is. They could be mopping the floors. Treat them the same, and try to be consistent in your walk because that's a part of just letting your light shine. Jesus was not he didn't treat the king differently than he treated a homeless person or someone out in the street, or someone who maybe had been a prostitute or a murderer or a thief. He didn't treat them any differently. It was like, I look at you as the same. I'm going to help you just as I would help someone else. So those are just some few things that stood out to me as David was talking, and even as I go through the verses of like letting your light shine. We're all human at the end of the day. We will fall. We are going to fall. Just because you become Christian and just because you identify yourself with God and you align yourself with God and you develop a relationship with God, a lot of people think that automatically means that I've been delivered and there's no more work to be done. There's still work to be done. In fact, I would argue that there's more work than ever because now the enemy is going to try to attack you in so many different ways and send things to attack you, knowing that you're aligning yourself even more with Christ. He's going to try to attack you even more. And it's typically the ones that are Christian and that are aligning themselves with God that he tends to go after even more. Because he's like, those are the ones that I really need to worry about. Because if I can get to them, then I can use them to get to the ones that haven't even developed a relationship. And then he's one thing my mom would also say is like, then he can point fingers at God and say, look at your son or look at your daughter. Look what I was able to do. I was able to turn them away from you by doing this and allowing this to happen. It goes back into, I believe, our last chapter, our last episode that we talked about, even with Jesus going through being in the desert alone. He still his faith didn't waver. It did not waver at all. He still stayed strong. He stayed the course because he wasn't going to allow the enemy to sway him away from what his purpose was. He wasn't going to allow that to happen. And we need to walk in that same manner. We'll never be perfect, but we can reach excellence. And that's just what we do. We continue to thrive towards that excellence with Christ. We can try to be Christ-like. We can never be Christ, but we can try to be Christ-like. And that's what we aim for.
Okay. Thank you for saying that because a lot of people will look at us and try to see like, oh, like the perfect Christians or not, but like you said, like we're not perfect. The only perfect man that's lived on this earth was Jesus himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that we're called to be a better man in the making, and
Yeah.
it's all just for the glory in God and our Father in heaven. Um, and that's the source of it. And I really pray that throughout this conversations, right, that anyone that's listening to us sits that in their heart when it comes to being the salt, right? Being the light that shines to the world, right? Because going back to Galatians of the fruits of the spirit, right? These things naturally just happen. It naturally just happens.